So in this chapter, we're going to be writing a hello world application in LangChain. Yeah, a hello world application in LangChain. And the purpose of this is for you to just see end-to-end how LangChain works, to quickly get familiar with how LangChain works, so that when we start going into prompt templates, models and stuff, you are not too confused as to what the operations of LangChain looks like. You get to see in this chapter how we create a prompt template, how we set up a model, and how we pass it to an output parser, and we'll run the entire chain and get an output. Yeah, we're going to be doing all that in this chapter. Now in this video, we're going to be doing the very first thing that is required, which is getting our API key. Now why do we need an API key? For our chain, we're going to be setting up our model, and we're going to be setting up one of these two models, either OpenAI or Google Gemini. We're going to be setting up one of these models, and in order to use the model, we need an API key. Yeah, we need an API key. The calls to the LLMs have to be authenticated, so we are required to have an API key to run our code. I'm going to be showing you how to get the API keys for OpenAI and for Google, for the Gemini models that Google provides. But you can also use Anthropic or Mistral, and I'm pretty sure getting their API keys are also quite straightforward. But in this video, let's look at the two major ones, which are OpenAI and Google. Now to set up, to get your API key rather for OpenAI, you have to come to platform.openai.com. Platform.openai.com. Once you log in, it brings you to this overview page. So the first thing you want to do is click on dashboard here at the top menu. Click on dashboard. So let's click that. So yeah, it's loading our dashboard. And to get our API key, we go to the side menu. See a bunch of links here. I will simply click the API keys link. Click the API keys link to take us to the API keys page. And here you will see I've already generated an API key. So if you're coming here for the first time, you won't see anything on this table, but I've generated a key. So this is my key. If you want to generate a new key, you simply go up here and click the green create new key button. You are allowed to enter an optional name for your key. I'll advise you do that so that you can recognize your keys and why you created them. Then let's say my test key. That was the example, right? That was the example in here. My test key, or let's say my hello world key. Yeah, and create that. Now if you have project set up on your account, you can pick a project, but I only have the default here, so I can just say, yeah, use the default and create a new key. And here I'm going to have a new key created for me. It's generated here, as you can see. Now, make sure you copy this key once. Just copy this key, get it now, because you won't have access to it again. Yeah, OpenAI will not give you access to it again. OpenAI has faced a lot of security issues in the past, and now they're not joking with their keys. So this is the only time you get to see this key. And even if you mistakenly push this key to a GitHub repo, they're going to automatically delete it. Yeah, they have a bot that does that. So once it recognizes any OpenAI key on GitHub, exposed on GitHub, is automatically deleted. So you want to copy this and keep it somewhere secure. I'm just going to stick it somewhere around here on my computer. Yeah, you didn't see that. So I'll just say done. Done. And yeah, now you can't see this key again. Yeah, you can see this key again. I've never used it, so it says last used never. Even if I try to edit it, it's not going to show me the key. I can only edit the name. So that's all. Now the thing about this key we just created is that even though we have created it and it's ours to use, it is not going to work. Yeah, the key is not going to work. The key is not going to work because for you to access the OpenAI APIs, you need to pay. Yeah, you need to purchase some credits. You need to purchase some credits. There used to be a time they used to have these, I think $18 they give you when it first came out. $18, you get to use that. Then you start paying later. But now it seems that you just have to pay. So I don't know if they still offer that free tier. This is a new account. So now you just have to pay. So for you to pay, purchase some credits, you have to locate your settings page, which you can get by clicking this cog up here. So you locate your settings page. And now the settings page, go to the side menu and click on billing. Click on billing. I currently have $9.99. As my credit balance. But before you can even add the credit balance, you first have to add the payment method. So two ways to add that. You can add it from this page. There's literally a payment methods link here. So you can click this to add it. And there's also a tab up here that you can click and add your payment method. So you can add a payment method. Once you have it added, then you come back to this page, this overview page, and you click add to credit balance. Yeah, add to credit balance. So if you click this, it's going to bring up this dialog for you to add credit balance. You can add $100, you can add $1,000, depending on what you want. Even though they say enter an amount between 5 and 90, so between 5 and 90, so I don't think I add $1,000 and stuff like that. So but you can add that. You can select your payment method, whichever one you want to use, and once you're done, you can click continue. And before you know it, it's a very smooth process. As long as your credit card works, it will just go through. As long as there's money in your credit card, definitely. And you'll be able to add credits to your account. And like I said, now I have $9.99, so I can still play around with the API a lot. So this is all you need to do for OpenAI. This is all you need to do for OpenAI. And because of this barrier, this pricing barrier, we're not going to be using OpenAI, or we're not going to be starting with it. I think based on the way I planned this course, we're going to be using OpenAI at the RAG section, just for us to use OpenAI, But for most of the course, we're going to be using Google. Because with Google, you have a very generous free tier. Yeah, with Google, you have a very generous free tier. So I think we can find that at Gemini. Say Gemini pricing. Yeah, this is a pricing page for Gemini. Okay, yeah. So this is Gemini pricing page, and as you can see, we have the Gemini 1.5 Flash, free of charge. You get to make 15 requests per minute, 1 million tokens per minute. That's the rate limit, and you can make 1,500 requests per day for free. Yeah, 1,500 requests per day, as long as each of those requests don't contain more than 1 million tokens per minute. So we have the Flash B. I think this just came out. That's one I called mini. It's not mini, it's 8B. Gemini 1.5 Flash 8B. So anyone you choose, even if you choose Gemini 1.5 Pro, which is their most powerful model right now, with the 1 or 2 million token context window, it's still very, very generously free. Let's go to 1.5 Pro. So with 1.5 Pro, you get to make 2 requests per minute. Kind of tight, but it's their most powerful model. The request should not contain more than 32,000 tokens per minute, and you can make 50 requests per day. Still fine, still fair, but I use 1.5 Flash most of the time because I know I'm not going to exhaust 1,500 requests in a single day for demos. So yeah, we're going to be using Gemini so that if you don't have OpenAI credits, this is not going to be like a blocker for you. But if you have OpenAI set up already, if you have credits on it, or you just want to use OpenAI, it's fine. Any example we do, there's an OpenAI equivalent. What is going to change there is going to be small. You don't have to worry about that. And I also always try my best to mention it. But I can tell you right now, apart from just calling your model class and giving it the specific model that you want it to use, that's the only difference. That's the only difference you're going to experience between using Gemini and using OpenAI. That's the only difference. So not every other thing in the API is the same from there on. So here in Google AI Studio, which is found at aistudio.google.com, how do we get our key? It's also straightforward. You simply just go to Get API Key, click that. This will take you to the API Keys page. And from here, if we scroll down, you see a Create API Key button. Yeah, Create API Key. This is the button we're going to click to get us our API key. I already have one API key here that I'll be using for my demos. But if you want to create a new API key, you simply come here, click Create API Key. Yeah, this dialog pops up, and you need to have a GCP project. Make sure you have a GCP project. Yeah, so because you need to create this key inside a GCP project. So I have my GCP projects here. I can pick any of them. Let's say this transcribing project, video transcribing LIL. So and once I click Create API Key in existing project, it's going to create the API key. Yeah, it's going to immediately create the API key. But because I already have one, I don't need to do this. Also, I think if you're creating your very first key, even if you have a GCP project, it will suggest to you that it can create one for you. And if you're okay with that, it will just automatically generate one GCP project for you without you having to go to the GCP platform. But if you don't have that, you have to go to GCP first, that's Google Cloud Platform, create a new project, then that project will be automatically available here for you to create an API key to use the Gemini models. So that's that. Like I said, we're going to be using the API key for Gemini because we don't need to pay for that. But like I said, in our RAG chapter, that's the chapter on retrieval augmented generation, I'm going to switch to OpenAI so that you can see that, yeah, everything is seamless with either models. So now that we have our API key, in the next video, we're going to scaffold our project. We're going to scaffold a new LangChain.js project. In this video, we're going to be creating our project for our Hello World LangChain.js application. And we're going to start by creating a folder for our project. Yeah, we're going to create a folder for our project. We're going to initialize it as a Node.js application, and we're going to install our dependencies. So let's get started. To begin, first let's create our folder. I'm going to call it Hello LangChain.js. Okay, we have our folder created. Now let's cd into the folder. Let's go into the folder, and I'm going to initialize this as a Node.js project. So just going to run npm init. Then I'm also going to be adding the -y flag so that I don't have to go through the whole interactive package.json creation process. It will just scaffold the basic bare bones one. So let's hit enter. Yep, that's our bare bones package.json. So if I clear the screen and do ls, we now have package.json. So that's fantastic. We have package.json. Now the next thing we're to do is to install our LangChain dependencies, our LangChain library and other dependencies. So I'm going to say npm install here. And the very first package I'm going to be installing, is the core LangChain library. So that's at LangChain/core. That's the first library we're going to install, LangChain core. Like I said, this library is core to every operation in LangChain. So this is one library you have to make sure that is available in your LangChain project. So that's good. The next one we're going to install is LangChain itself. The main LangChain library. Yeah, the upper level LangChain library. The one that is actually called LangChain. So we install that so that when we want to use things like memory, we want to use things like agents and stuff like that, yeah, we get it from here. But most of the things we're going to be using, especially in the beginning, are going to come from the core library. Now, the third thing we're going to install is the package for our model partner. Yeah, the package for our model partner. Like I told you, popular LLMs like OpenAI and Google, their integrations have been separated into partner packages, what is known as partner packages in LangChain. It has been separated. So if we're not working with something that popular, maybe a very small language model, yeah, we will have an integration from LangChain community. But we want to work with Google here. So we need LangChain Google GenAI. Yeah, we need LangChain Google GenAI. That is the official library for the Google Generative AI LangChain package at LangChain/GenAI. Now I want you to note, this main LangChain library doesn't have an @ so note that, it doesn't have an @ but LangChain core, LangChain Google GenAI, it has. If we were using OpenAI, this will have been LangChain OpenAI. So we also have LangChain Anthropic. Yeah, we also have at LangChain Anthropic. So we have all these different client libraries for different popular LLM integrations. But let's go back. Let's say Google GenAI. And yeah, these are the 3 libraries we're going to need for this Hello World project. So you can hit npm install and let's get that running. Wonderful. So now we have our packages installed. Yeah, we have them installed. And the next thing we're going to do is to open this up in Visual Studio Code. Now you can use any editor of your choice, but for this course, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code because it's popular And I also love using it. Yeah, it's a personal preference also. So we're going to be opening this project up in Visual Studio Code. So now we have our project open up in Visual Studio Code. And the first thing I'm going to do is open package.json. Open package.json. So two things we're going to do here. First thing I want to do is set this project to type modal. Type modal. This will allow me to use import and exports. So yeah, and I can also run await without having async functions. So we have type modal. Now the next thing we have to do is something that LangChain requires. LangChain.js requires. And this is a precaution. This is a precaution that you would need to apply to your LangChain.js project. Maybe in the future we won't have to add this again, but for now we have to. So you have to add an override section. You have to add an override section. Now if you are using PNPM, this will be the resolutions section. But we use NPM, so we use overrides. Now, what we're going to be overriding here is the LangChain core library that every other LangChain library that we install is going to use. Yeah, the LangChain core library that every other LangChain library that we install is going to use. Remember I told you that every LangChain library depends on this LangChain core library. Yeah, every one of them. Now, you don't want to have different LangChain libraries using different versions of the LangChain core library. You don't want to have that. You want them to use the same version of the LangChain core library. Else, you might face some unexpected bugs. So, LangChain advises that you add this override section and you just simply copy this with this and put it here. Yeah. Copy this here and put it here. This will make sure that every single LangChain package is using this version of the LangChain core library. Yeah, to make sure that all of them are using this version of the LangChain core library. And that is that. Yeah, that's that. So we have a LangChain core installed. We have LangChain Google Generative AI installed. And we also have the main LangChain library installed. We have all our dependencies and we've set our override section. Before we go, I'm just going to show you a quick web page on the documentation website. That's a LangChain documentation. That'll be js.langchain.com/docs/ow_2 installation. Yeah, the installation page on the how-to section. So instead of cramming this link, you can just come to how-tos, how-to guides, and click on installation. That's how-to guides, installation. Yeah. So I'm showing you this because sometimes you want to run LangChain in different kind of environments, like Cloudflare workers in your Next.js or Vercel environment, Superbase Edge functions, Dino, Born, or even directly in the browser. So whichever environment you are running LangChain, this page provides information on how you can install LangChain and set it up. So it shows how you can install LangChain and set it up. So if we go to, for example, let's go to Cloudflare workers. So yeah, a simple import is enough. If we go to Vercel, the same thing basically. Let's look at Dino. So with Dino, you get to use this URLs. Yeah, that's how Dino works. You get to use these URLs or this. Then we have the browser. Let's see how it works in the browser. Yeah, you just import also. Import, yeah, your packages. So yeah, Node.js 16 is unsupported. By the way, I need to mention, for you to use LangChain, you have to have Node.js 18 or above. Yeah, for you to use LangChain, you need to have Node.js 18 and above. Anything downward is not supported, but I think there's a polyfill for this. If you are running Node.js 16, if you just have to use Node.js 16, then you should come to this section. Says we do not support Node.js 16, but if you still want to run LangChain on Node.js 16, you will need to follow the instructions in this section. We do not guarantee that these instructions will continue to work in the future. So you are kind of playing a dangerous game here, but yeah, at least for now, this should work. But it's advisable that you move to Node.js 18 so that you don't have anything to worry about. So anything from Node.js 18 upward, yeah, LangChain, so that. And when you're reading LangChain documentation, at least at the time of creating this course, make sure that you're on the recent version. you're reading the LangChain.js documentation, make sure that you're on the recent version, because when I started studying LangChain, I was on the version 1. I was on the version 1, and thanks to this message, I had even started doing a lot of stuff around before I saw this message. So thanks to this message, I was able to switch to version 3. When you're watching this course, we might have 0.4, 0.5. So you want to just make sure that you come to this drop down and make sure that you're on the latest version, because immediately I loaded the LangChain documentation on my browser, I think I had it bookmarked. When I loaded it, I didn't know that I bookmarked the 0.1 version. So I just started using that until I saw that message, and I'm really glad I made the switch. I'm really glad I made the switch. So yeah, that's everything on setting up our project. In the next video, we're going to be creating our very first prompt using a prompt template. So we have installed our dependencies. We have also set up our overrides section. Then I added this type module so that I can use import and exports. And now we can start writing some code. Yeah, let's start writing some code. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it chain.js. Chain.js, because it's going to be our very first LangChain chain. So chain.js, and in this video we're going to be creating our very first prompt using a prompt template. Yeah, you're going to see how to use a prompt template to create a prompt. Now, this is not the class on prompt templates, so I'm just going to be writing the code. I'm going to be explaining along, but this is not the class on prompt templates. There's a separate chapter where we're going to deal with that. I think that's the next chapter after this Hello World chapter. So if you don't understand some things already, don't beat yourself too much. Don't worry. We're going to have a chapter where we're going to explain how it all works. So the first thing we're going to do is bring in our prompt template class. We're going to bring in our prompt template class. We want to use a simple prompt. We're going to, in this example, we're just going to ask a question, ask the model a question. So we're going to use a simple string prompt. So I'm going to say import curly braces. Now I won't type the name of the class yet because I want the autocomplete. So I'm going to enter the package first. So where are we going to be getting our prompt template class? It will be from LangChain, at LangChain core, from the core LangChain package, and we're going to say prompts. So at LangChain core prompts, this is where we're going to get our prompt templates. This is where all the prompt templates that come bundled with LangChain come from. Yeah, this is where they all come from. And from there, we're going to need a package called prompt template. Prompt template. Yeah, this is the simplest prompt template in LangChain. So we're going to say prompt template. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to create our template string. A template string. This will consist of our prompt and any piece of data that we want inside. Let me just put this aside first, yeah, so that we can have this whole screen to ourselves. So template string, and this is where I'm going to type my prompt. I will just say, please provide suggestions on a good pet name for a pet animal. So I can say for a dog, for a cat, but I'm going to introduce a variable here. I'm going to introduce a prompt variable, and I'm going to call it pet animal. Pet animal. Let me wrap this code. Yeah. So I say, please provide suggestions on a good pet name for a. Now instead of coding the pet, I just add this curly braces, which is how you might have guessed how you add variables, and I just call it pet animal. So that's my template string. And from here, I'm going to create a new prompt. I'm going to create a new prompt using our prompt template class. So I'll say const pet name prompt equals prompt template, and I'm going to use the from template static method, and this will take in our template string. So prompt template from template. That's create a prompt template from a template, and I pass it the template string. So here we have the prompt. This will generate the prompt using this prompt template. Now, to view what this produced, like I said, prompt templates are runnables, so we can run it using the invoke function. But we don't even need to run it. There is a function called format that we can just use to see the string representation of what a prompt is. So I'm just going to say console.log await. Do I need a wait for pet? Yeah, format. Yeah, I need a format. So the pet name prompt dot format. Format is a function that will just give us a string representation. So we call format and we pass in our data. We pass in the data. The data is basically an object where we can have key value pairs of our variables. So the only variable here is pet name, or pet animal rather, pet animal. So I say pet animal, and the pet animal I want to use is dogs, or dog. Yeah, for a dog. So pet animal, I set it to dog. Can set it to cat. Can set it to let's say rabbit. Yeah, but for now let's just use dog. Let's use dog. So we'll save that. Let me just make this cleaner. Instead of just to say const prompt equals, then just cut this, put it here, then console.log the prompt. Okay, yeah, let's take it like that. So const prompt, yeah, format. So we created our template string. We pass it to our prompt template to create a prompt. Then we call the format function on our prompt template so that it can give us the string representation of the prompt. That's what we're doing here. Like I said, you don't need to make your head hot trying to figure this out now. This is a Hello World project, so we're simply just looking at how things work in LangChain. And now we have generated our prompt. So we have our prompt. Let's go and run this code to see what we get. Let's go here. So I'm just going to say node chain.js. Node chain.js. And when I hit enter, it tells me, please provide suggestions on a good pet name for a dog. Yeah, for a dog. And this is the key part here. That is substituted our value for our variable. Substituted our value for our variable. If I go back and change this to rabbit, and we go and run this again, it now says rabbit. Yeah, now says rabbit. So that's how prompt templates work. You give them the data that they need, and they're going to output a prompt for you. And this is the simplest version. This is the simplest version. We're going to be looking at more complex prompts later on, but this is the simplest version. So please provide suggestions on a good pet name for a rabbit, and this is what is sent to the model. And there you have a prompt template. Next video, we're going to be setting up our model, and we're going to create an output parser, then use the prompt template that we created here with our model and our parser, and run a chain. Yeah, you're going to see our very first chain. We're going to run a very cool chain with LangChain. So we have created our prompt using our prompt templates. Our prompt is the question we're going to be asking our model. And in this video, we're going to be creating our very first chain. We're going to create our first LangChain.js chain. We're going to be setting up our model. That's our Gemini model from Google Generative AI. And we are also going to be using an output parser to pass the result from the model as a string output. So let's get started with that. The first thing we're going to do is to make sure that our API key is active. Yeah, we need to set up our API key in our environment. Now you can also set up your API key directly in code, but that's not advised, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that later. But we're going to be following the standard practice of adding it to our environment in this video. So let's do that first. I'm going to clear this and add my Google API key. Now I'm just going to be adding it temporarily to this terminal session, but if you want it to be persistent, you have to add it to your path variable. If you're on Windows, then you add it to your bash profiles. If you're on Linux or Mac. So, but for now, I'm just going to be adding it temporarily using the export function. So I'm going to say export. The standard name for the Google API key is Google _API _ key. That's the standard name that's the standard environment variable name for the Google API key. Google _API _ key. You say equals, and you set it to the value of your API key. Yeah, set it to the value of your API key. If you're using OpenAI, you simply change Google to OpenAI. OpenAI _API _ key. These are the standard names, even from their own documentation on how to add API keys to your environment. So make sure that you consult the vendors, the LLM vendors documentation also. Or LangChain documentation will always tell you the right way to do it. So here we're using Google. So it's a Google API key. And I'm just going to grab my API key, paste it, and hit enter. Yeah, hit enter, and now I've added it to my environment. Now if I do echo, no, not capital, let's say echo $ Google API key, I have my API key. So my API key is active on this session, on this terminal session. Now it will not be active on another terminal session because it's temporarily here. So this is where I'm going to be running my code. I'm going to be running my code. So take note of that. But if you want it to be persistent, like I said, you can add it to your path variable through your bash profile on Linux or Mac, or your path variable on Windows. So now that we have the API key in place, let's go back to code. Let's go back to code and let's start creating our chain. So the first thing we want to do is set up our model. And to set up our model, we're going to be using the partner package that comes from Google Generative, that comes from LangChain for Google Generative AI. Yeah, we're going to be using that standard package. So I'm going to say import. I still have the caps locks on. Import curly brace from @LangChain /Google /Gen AI. Yeah, that's the package that we're going to be using. Like I said, if you're using OpenAI, you will have installed that, and this will be OpenAI. But that's not available, so this will be Google Gen AI. And from that, the standard class for our model integration from Google Gen AI is Chat Google Generative AI. Chat Google Generative AI. Awesome. So we have that in place. Now let's set up our model. First, let me get rid of these guys. Yeah, I only need this line to have my prompt template set up. So that's all good. So let's set up our model. Let me do that up here just before the template. Set up the model. I'm going to create a new variable and call it Gemini model. Set that equal to a new instance of Chat Google Generative AI. And we're going to be passing it an object. We're going to be passing it a configuration object, rather. So pass the configuration object, and the only thing we'll be setting for now is the model, the name of the model we want to use. Because Gemini has a suite of models, so we can use any one of them, 1.5 Pro, 1.5 Flash, and so on. I'm going to be using Gemini 1.5 Flash. Gemini 1.5 Flash. Yeah, that's the model I'll be using. And yeah, that's good enough. This is our handle to our model. Yeah, that sets up our model. So we have our model set up. The environment variable is already in place, so our API key, this will automatically pick up our API key from the environment using that standard environment variable name. So we have our model set up. Let me say model. We have our prompt template. Model prompt template. And the last component we're going to be setting up is our output parser. We're going to be setting up our output parser. Now I want the output from the model to come as a string. I just want a string response. Just give me a string response. For names for a good or rather a good pet name for a rabbit, a dog, or whatever animal we choose to use. So let's create our output parser, and we're going to be using a string output parser. So import parsers can be found in the core library also. So I'll say at LangChain /core/output parsers. Output parsers. So that's where you can find all the output parsers that come with the LangChain package. And we're going to be using the string output parser. String output parser. Yeah. So that is the output parser we're going to be using. And to set it up is quite straightforward. All we need to do is create a new instance. I'm using const string parser equals new string output parser. Yeah, that's all we need. Yeah, just straightforward, and we have our string parser. So we have our three components here. We have our model, we have our template string. Oh no, not our template string. We have our prompt from our prompt template, and we have our string parser. And luckily for us, they are all runnables, so we can pipe them together and create a chain. Now, I've been saying pipe a lot, and that's because there's literally a pipe function that runnables use to chain to each other. Yeah, there's literally a pipe function that runnables use to chain to each other. So that's why I've been mentioning pipe a lot, and you're going to be seeing that in action right now. So let's create our chain. Say chain. Let me draw this down. Okay. So I'm going to say const chain. Let me say pet name chain is equal to pet name prompt. So we get the prompt first, then we pipe it to our model. What name do we give our model? Gemini model. Yeah, so Gemini, we pipe it to our Gemini model. So we get the prompt and we feed it to our model, and whatever comes from our model, we pipe it to our output parser, which is our string parser. Pipe it to our string parser, and we have our chain. Yep, we have our chain. That's our chain. From prompt template to model to parser. Yeah, prompt template, model, parser, and we have our chain. Now, how do we use this chain? Now we can call this chain with our variables, the variables that is required, which is basically the variable required by our template, which is this pet animal. We can call it using the invoke function. Yeah, we can call it using the invoke function. Like I said, the invoke function is what you use to invoke a runnable or run a runnable. Yeah, that's what you use to run it. So, and you can run it at any point in the chain, because an entire chain is a runnable itself. It's a fluent interface. So we can say const response equals await, because it's an asynchronous function. Invoke is an asynchronous function and performs an asynchronous operation, because even calling our model is an asynchronous operation. So that's the cue. So I'm just going to say pet name chain dot invoke. I'm going to invoke this with our data, with our object data, the same one we passed to format. So what variable are we expecting? Pet animal. I'll set the pet animal to rabbit. So we want to get pet names for a rabbit. I just hope it doesn't give us Bugs Bunny or something like that. So let's see the response. We will just console.log response. Console.log response. Yep, and that should be good. Console.log response. And because we have a string parser here, this our response should just be a string of our answer. We should just get our answer and we should get it as a string. So no objects or any other metadata that is coming from the model. So what have we done here? Let's do a quick run through. The first thing we did is to set up our model. We added our environment variable for our API key and set up our model. Then we created our prompt template, even though this was what we did first, but that was cool, wasn't it? Yeah, so we set up our prompt template. Then we set up our parser, our output parser. Then we use these three components to create a chain based on how they interact with each other. And then we have our response. We call invoke to get our response, and we pass it our data, which is the variable pet name that we introduced into the template string. So this has to be provided. And once that is in, we get our response and we log it. So let's save this and run the code. Let's run the code. Let's go here. Now make sure you are in this. That's if you're using this temporary style that I used for adding my environment variable. Make sure that you're in the same tab of the terminal. Yeah, make sure you're in the same tab. So now let's run node.chain.js. Node.chain.js. Right, enter. This should hang for a while because it's making the request. And now it's back. That's super fast. Yeah, super fast. Gemini 1.5 Flash is actually quite fast. So, yeah. So that was fast. And we get so much results here, a bunch of results. It says cute and classic. Yeah, if we want cute and classic names. We have a bunny, the timeless classic. We have Coco, Snowball, Hazel, Clover. I'm still going to see if I can see Bugs Bunny here. Then we have unique and playful, which is Jasper, Willow, Pippin, Pepper, or Fig. Then, based on personality, we have Dash. I think I like Dash. Smudge, Bolt, Ziggy, and Mocha. And he gave us some suggestions on other creative ideas. Oh, sadly we don't have Bugs Bunny, but that's all good. But as you can see, we've been able to use LangChain to run a chain that creates a prompt template. It creates a prompt from a prompt template, passes it to a model, and formats the output as a string. And here we run the chain and we can see our result printed out, which is just awesome. So that's your hello world into LangChain.js. And now we can start going into the components.